So I'm going to talk to you guys about 5 things you should know before you start your first album. And this is obviously designed more for people that are doing it independently or have never done it before and just want to get an idea of where to start and what to be thinking about before they proceed with their project. This isn't only stuff that I think people should think about. This is also stuff that I wish I had thought about before I started my first project, because these 5 things would have saved me a ton of time. Okay, so number one. Number one is, how are you going to record your album? Now that seems pretty obvious, but it's something that you need to sit and actually plan out and think about, because when you're doing something as in-depth as recording an album, starting a project like that, you need to sit down, you need to really plan it out and map things out and know exactly how you're going to get from point A to point B. That doesn't mean things aren't going to change along the way, because that always happens. It's never going to go exactly as planned, but as long as you have a pretty structured plan from point A to point B, less stuff will go wrong than if you kind of go in free form, willy-nilly, and you don't know what you're doing. One of the main things to consider when you're thinking about how you're going to complete your album is where are you going to complete it. Obviously, when you think about recording music, the first option you think about is a recording studio, because that's how you've viewed music probably for a long time, seeing it in movies or TV shows, whatever. People go to recording studios to record music, and that's great. And for some people who can afford it, that might be a good option. That might be the best option for them. But there's other options you can do other than that. I would say option number 2 for where you can record is find a friend. Do you have a friend that owns a home studio? Do you have a friend that owns recording equipment that's adequate for what you're trying to do? And if the answer is yes, then listen to some of the stuff that they've done and make sure that you're getting involved with someone who knows what they're doing and can create music that sounds good. Because just because someone's a friend doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be a good person to start a project with, or might not mean that they know anything about recording at all. They might just have the equipment. So make sure you're careful with that one. And then the third option I would say is getting your own equipment. That might seem a little bit unrealistic at this early on, but it's something that is doable. It's something that I did a while ago. Most music stores and music websites sell recording packs anywhere from $400 to $800. They'll come with a microphone, monitors, headphones, maybe mic cables, and recording software, and enough stuff that you can record a legitimate piece of music with it. Now, obviously, if you go that route, you're going to have to deal with the learning curve of actually having to learn how to record and produce and everything, and that's going to be really difficult, and expect to spend months to even years just doing that portion of it. So even if you do that, if you buy your own equipment, maybe have a friend around with you that can help you produce, or if you know someone who's produced in the past or has recording experience, having that person around to get you through the initial wave of trouble and the learning curve is gonna help you a lot. So that's the main points for part 1. Number 2. Advice number 2, discovering your sound is very important. And that's another one that sounds very obvious, but this is a super important part of recording and making music, because discovering your sound is a difference between you being happy with your final product and you not being happy with your final product and thinking like, what did I do? This isn't what I want to portray, or this is not what I want people to hear from me. I don't want people to think I've created this. So discovering your sound doesn't necessarily have to happen up front before you've started the process. Discovering your sound is most likely going to happen along the way, unless you're already established. If you already are established, you're probably not going to be watching this video anyways. So the point is, with discovering your sound, you don't need to sit down before you start your process and say, hey, I want to be, I want my music to sound like this, or I want to be a rapper, I want to be an R&B singer, I want to be, folk rock, I want to do rock and roll. Let the process kind of guide you towards what you want to do in music, because some people might want to do one specific genre, but their voice or their attitude or their recording skills or ability for whatever, it might not cater to that genre as well as it may cater to another genre. So just mess around at the beginning, take your time, figure out what you like to do, figure out what sounds good with your voice or what sounds good with your production style. And it's one of those things that you might discover early on. You might discover a weekend. You might already know, or you might not discover for a year in, 2 years in. I know it took me about a year and a half to actually realize what I was trying to do. And on my album, I ended up scrapping more than half the songs because I finally realized, like, oh my God, after all this time, I finally, zeroed in on what I want my sound to be. So when you finally discover what you want your sound to be, it's such a freeing feeling, because then from then on you kind of know, okay, I won't write these type of songs anymore. I'll write them like this, and you have this awakening, and you realize what you're going for. Okay, number 3 is your music really good enough? This sounds kind of mean, and this is another one that's completely obvious. But my point isn't so much, you know, are you not good enough? Like, man, your music stinks, don't do this. My point is, are you ready to do this? Are you ready to start undertaking something as big as recording your own album? Okay, number 4, organization is key. When you start a project, you want to make sure every step of the way you're staying organized, because if you do 3 months of work, 4 months of work, a year of work, and all of a sudden you lose all your files because the files got corrupted in your computer, which is something that has also happened to me, you are going to hate the fact that you didn't take an extra 30 seconds to do a different save as and save a copy to your external drive, or you didn't use a cloud to save your store your stuff separately. It's one of those things, it takes about 30 seconds just to think, okay, am I doing everything the proper way? And that can save you in the long run, that can save you years, months, weeks of time. Number 5, don't second guess yourself. And this sounds kind of contradictory to what I was saying is step number 3, which is your music really good enough? Are you really good enough? But my point with that is you want to assess yourself to ask, hey, am I at this point? But you don't want to doubt yourself. For example, if you're trying out for a varsity basketball team at your high school and you can barely dribble the ball, you're not going to go and you're not going to make the team. So guess what? There's no point of trying out because you can't even dribble yet. So the point is, take the summer, learn how to dribble so that next year when you go back to the team, you can at least dribble and you can shoot. Point being with music is, man, if you can't even play the guitar yet, or dude, you've never written a song, you got to take the time to learn how to play guitar, or learn how to write a song, or learn how to play piano, or learn how to play whatever genre of music, learn how to rap, do it, learn how to make a beat. But once you're there and once you've learned, if you think something sounds good, just go with it, and don't let any of your friends, don't let anybody else say, man, that's crap or that's bullshit, because a lot of times they're saying it from their own opinion, not realizing, oh, other people have their own opinion too, and what might not sound good to one person does sound good to somebody else. So number 5, that's one big thing I had to overcome the last couple years, was do not doubt yourself. My big problem was for singing and vocals. I constantly doubted my vocal sound, my vocal range. I struggled for years with being able to sing properly and get good vocal takes. And then it got to a point and I was like, man, what the hell? I can sing better than a lot of other people I know. Like, why do I keep doubting myself? And then along with that, I discovered a good recording technique, which is, you know, doubling your vocal tracks and verb and how to EQ properly, blah, 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 blah. That's something I'll get into further down the line. But yep, number 5 is just don't doubt yourself. If you think you're good, just go with it, dude. Because guess what? If you don't believe in yourself, nobody else is going to. That's the 5 main things. I'll go over them again. One is, how are you going to record the album? Just make sure you have a plan. You always got to have a plan when you're going into something like recording your own album. That's a huge process. It is. People underestimate it. It's a huge process. You've got to have a plan before you do it. 2, discover your sound. Like I said, that won't only happen at the beginning. That'll happen along the way. Don't rush it. I took 2 years to record my album. I've been writing since I was 15. That was almost 10 years ago. And it took me about a year to a year and a half in to really realize, oh my God, this is what the sound is that I was looking for. And I've been writing these other songs and recording them, and I didn't even want to do them anymore, because guess what? I realized I was way past that, and it just wasn't me. So I scrapped a ton of songs. I threw away a ton of work I had done because I knew there was something that was way better. And I don't look back at all. I'm super happy that I did that. And I think that was one of the best decisions I ever made. And it felt kind of weird recording for a year, thinking that, man, I know exactly what I'm doing. And then all of a sudden one day you wake up, you record something new, and you go, no, that's what I want. I don't want that other stuff. And then you scrap it. You still have it. Don't delete it or anything. But you scrap it, and then you move on, and you start focusing on that sound and that process you came up with. 3, like I said, is your music really good enough? That's not me doubting you. That's just saying, are you at the point where you're ready to undertake something as big as making an album? Because when you do stuff by yourself, sometimes you can, you know, overestimate or underestimate the process. So just make sure your plan is, make sure you've practiced, make sure you're ready to do it. 4, organization is key. And 5, don't second guess yourself. So that's really it. These glasses aren't even real, by the way. I just wore them so I'd look smarter and you guys would believe me. But, just kidding. So that's it. That's the 5 main things that I wish somebody had sat down and talked to me about before I had started recording my album, or at least that I wish I had sat down and thought about myself. But you know what? Hindsight's 20/20. I didn't even think of any of these things, and I wouldn't have even been able to comprehend any of these things back when I first started, because it's just not a thought that was going through my head. But yeah, so that's it. I'll be doing new videos soon, so like and subscribe, do the normal stuff, and I hope this helped you, and good luck with everything.